Welcome back, everybody. My next guest is the anchor of Fox News Sunday and has spent over 55 years in the broadcast industry. His new book is called Countdown 1945. Please welcome Chris Wallace. Chris, thanks for being here.
Where's the band and where's the crowd? I thought I was doing the Stephen Colbert show.
We're going to lay all that in later. Believe me. We'll have a cheering crowd for anything I say, I promise you.
Yeah, I'm sure. And they'll boo me as they usually do.
Well, it's tradition. It's tradition, Chris. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, you've been a reporter for over 55 years. Have you ever seen anything like the moment we're going through right now? Do you have any points of reference or frame for what's happening right now?
And I've thought about it a lot. Anything like what we are seeing in 2020. The only year that comes to mind is 1968. And I was a senior in college. But, you know, think back then, or for most people, it'll probably be Google back then. We had the Vietnam War raging. Lyndon Johnson, the president, suddenly resigned. Well, he didn't resign. He said he wasn't going to run for re-election. We had the terrible assassination of Martin Luther King. Cities on fire, much more so than the protests we're seeing this year. Then the assassination of Bobby Kennedy, and then the protests and the police beating of protesters in the streets of Chicago during the Democratic Convention. And a little bit, although I think that was worse than this year, the same feeling of, is the country just going to come apart? There's a little bit of that same feeling. The one thing that we're having this year we didn't have then, of course, is the pandemic and the economic collapse that came with that. So that's an added feature for 2020.
Well, another sort of added feature for 2020 is you have all these retired military coming out and expressing well, their criticism, their distress, the dismay at the behavior of our present president. Powell Mullen, who you had on, Admiral Mullen, who you had on Fox News Sunday this week, I understand, and of course, General Mattis. Does this surprise you? Have you seen this level of ex-military coming out so forcefully speaking out against the president?
Well, and more important than the president, the commander-in-chief. I'm not particularly surprised by Colin Powell. I mean, he's been for every Democrat since Barack Obama in 2008. But Mullen, and especially Mattis, I'm surprised at. Mattis wrote a memoir either earlier this year, late last year, and a lot of people were disappointed because, remember, he resigned because of a policy disagreement over pulling troops out of Syria, and it was clear he was not very happy with the president. And when he wrote his memoir, a lot of people, including myself, were disappointed that he didn't say what he had to say about Donald Trump. And he said, I think I owe him the duty of silence, which I understood as a kind of a military honor that I served him as the Secretary of Defense, and I'm not going to undercut him in the middle of his presidency, especially the term that I served with him during. And that broke this week. And it broke because he was just fed up with what he felt was the president's divisive nature. He said that I've been in service to the country for decades, I guess probably a half a century for him too. And he said, all presidents have tried to unite us, and this one, he says, tries to divide us. So that was pretty shocking and I think pretty damaging to the president.
Speaking of the president and his ability or his inability to unite us, there was some talk, and this was reporting sort of from anonymous sources within the White House, that the president and his team had considered giving a speech last week sort of unity and addressing the racial divide and the use of force by police against black communities in the United States, but decided against it because A, it stylistically doesn't meet the president, and also they didn't have concrete proposals to go with it. Now there's talk of that again. Is it too late, in your opinion, for him to do that? Because he's already sort of put his marker down that these people are violent. These people are not real protesters. These people are terrorists. Even Mr. Gugino from Buffalo, he's in Antifa. He was secretly trying to block cops' radios. Has he thrown away all of his political capital on doubling down on that these protesters and this opposition to the way that his administration has responded to this aren't legitimate enough to address?
I push back a little because I don't think he has said that all the protesters are violent. In fact, he said when he made his statement in the Rose Garden a week ago Monday, he said that I'm the president of law and order and a friend of peaceful protest. But I certainly take your general point, which
But
is
while
that,
he said that, in the middle of saying that, you could hear the flash grenades going off in the background against peaceful protesters. So he has no ground to stand on there.
Well, okay, I know that's your view. I'm not going to
Well,
go
no,
that
it's not my view. That actually happened.
Well, no,
if
but
somebody
I mean,
says,
I don't
I'm not a violent person,
I don't know that you
can
can say he has no. Look, I don't want to be in the position of defending her, but I'm just citing the record, which is that the president has said that there are protesters, and he supports that, and then there are violent people, and there certainly have been that as well. But to get to the bigger point, okay. I certainly think that there were plenty of opportunities over the last 2 weeks where the president, who has come down, very hard on law and order, and even earlier this week met with law enforcement officials, he hasn't had civil rights leaders in. He hasn't had the family of George Floyd in. He would have had a lot of opportunities to make 2 points, I think both of which are valid, which is that there are some serious concerns here about policing in African American minority communities and some of the misconduct that happens there, some of the unequal treatment. You just have to look at Minneapolis, where police are 7 times more likely to use force against young black men than they are against young white men. I mean, there are some stats that just indicate it. And he could have done that while at the same time espousing law and order. And he seems, and I think this is his instinct, that he wanted to accentuate one and really not say very much, a little, but not very much about the other.
Do you think it's just his instincts, or do you think he's getting bad advice? Because I know that he's got an increasingly smaller sort of circle of advisors, because anybody who disagrees with him gets the door.
I think that as time has gone on, and I agree with you that people that push back too much against the president don't have long to live in the Trump White House. I think that it's more and more Trump unplugged, Trump's vision of the world and Trump's instincts. And so when he's reacted over the last 2 weeks, as he has, whether you like it or not, I think it's Donald Trump.
Now, you've made the president mad a few times. You've, with your, I believe the word is with your fact checking. You said he tweeted this about you recently. Just
are we going to do mean tweets? I thought another late night show did mean tweets.
He doesn't have a copyright, unfortunately. Just watch.
Not intellectual property.
No. Just watched Mike Wallace wannabe Chris Wallace on @Fox News. I am now convinced he's even worse than Sleepy Eyes Chuck Todd of Meet the Press, please, or the people over at Deface the Nation. What the hell is happening to @Fox News? It's a whole new ball game over there. Does it make you feel good when this happens? Because if a journalist makes the comfortable uncomfortable and the powerful a little bit on edge, haven't you done your job?
Yeah, I will say, yes, generally speaking, I would agree with that. And particularly if you make both sides mad. I mean,
you do.
Yeah,
you do.
Listen, I tick you off, so I just seem to be.
I'm not a politician.
I understand. It's on a human level that you hate me.
I don't hate you, man. I don't hate you. I love having you on. Chris, we have to take a quick break. But when we come back, we'll talk about Chris's new book, Countdown 1945. Stick around.